Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're focusing on learning English, especially for everyday conversations.
I love it.
So picture this. You're thinking about redecorating your living room,
Okay.
right? What sort of things come to mind? Colors, new furniture, maybe even some of those trendy houseplants everyone's into these days.
Yeah, those are popular.
And that's exactly the type of scenario we're going to be, breaking down in this deep dive. We've got this dialogue called Decorating the Living Room. And it features two people, Alex and Ella, just brainstorming ideas for their living room. And as always, I've got a fantastic expert here to unpack all the details and, all the cool phrases. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Really excited about this one. There's so much we can learn from just a little chat about decorating.
Absolutely. But before we, dive in and analyze it, let's just hear that full dialogue first. It's like, eavesdropping on a real conversation, which is like the best way to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Let's hear from Alex and Ella.
Okay, so the scene is set. Alex and Ella are at home, just relaxing, maybe, and they start talking about their living room. Let's hear it.
Hi, Ella.
Hey, Alex. I think we need a big rug in the living room.
That sounds like a good idea. What color are you thinking?
Maybe something neutral, like beige or light gray.
Neutral colors would match the furniture well.
Do you think we should add some plants, too?
Yes. A few plants would make the room feel fresher.
Great. Let's shop for the rug and some plants this weekend.
Oh, I love their energy. I can practically see them getting excited about this whole decorating project.
Me too. And that enthusiasm is contagious,
Mm,
Makes learning English feel less like work and more like a fun thing to do.
exactly. Okay, so we've heard the dialogue, and now it's time for the deep dive.
Let's do it. I mean, there are so many good phrases in that short conversation.
So where should we start?
Well, I think it's important to just go over some key words and expressions before we move on.
Love it. Let's break it down. What stood out to you?
Well, right away, Ella says, I think we need a big rug in the living room. So simple, but, that's a sentence you can use all the time. Like, I need, and then whatever it is you need.
So useful. And just a little bit later, Alex says, neutral colors would match the furniture well. Match is a great word to know when you're talking about, colors and styles, meaning they look good together.
Exactly. And neutral colors are colors that aren't too bright or bold. Think beige, light gray, white, those kind of colors. They're really popular for decorating because they go with everything.
That's a great tip for anyone learning English. If you're not sure what color to choose, just go with a neutral. You can't go wrong.
Right. Now, there's another phrase I wanted to point out. Make the room feel fresher. Alex says this when they're talking about adding plants. So what do you think he means by that?
Hmm. Well, to me, it sounds like he's saying that the plants can kind of liven up a space and make it feel, I don't know, more vibrant.
Exactly. Plants add life to a room, literally. And using the phrase make the room feel, that's really useful when you're describing how you want a space to feel. You could say make the room feel cozy or make the room feel more modern.
Ooh, those are great examples. This is why listening to real conversations is so helpful when you're learning English, right? You pick up these natural phrases that you might not find in, like, a textbook.
Totally agree. Now let's look at some more interesting phrases from that dialogue. Ella says, let's shop for the rug and some plants this weekend.
Oh, good one. That's a really clear way to express a plan, isn't it? They're going to shop and they're going this weekend. No ambiguity there. What else stood out to you?
Well, I thought it was interesting, how they described the size and quantity of things. Like Alex wanted a big rug and Ella said a few plants. Those are good basic words, but like there are other ways to say those things too.
Oh, right. So they said a big rug. Could they have said, like, a large rug instead? What's the difference there to your ear?
Hmm. Large sounds a little more formal to me. Maybe a little bit more technical. You could also use it to describe the size of like a room or a building.
Yeah.
But big is more casual, more everyday language.
Okay, yeah, I see. So it's like, I might say I live in a big city, but I wouldn't say I live in a large city. right? It sounds a little weird.
Exactly. It's all about, like, getting a feel for those subtle differences between words. And for a few plants, they could have said, a couple of plants or some plants.
Yeah, those all sound good to me. Is there any difference in meaning between those?
Not really, no. They all mean a small number. A couple usually means two, but a few or some could be two or three, maybe even four. It just depends on the context.
Huh, that's interesting. So, like, if someone offered me a few cookies, I'd be hoping for more than two.
Uh-huh, exactly. Context is everything in language.
Okay, I'm putting that on a sticky note. Context is key. So we talked about the vocabulary, but what about the grammar? Anything interesting going on grammatically in this dialogue?
Well, the sentence structures are, pretty simple, which is great for beginner English learners. But there is one example of a modal verb that I thought was worth pointing out. So Alex says, do you think we should add some plants too?
Oh, yeah, should. That's a tricky one. What does should mean again?
Right. So should is used to give advice or to make a suggestion. So in this case, Alex is suggesting that they add plants. It's not a command, just a suggestion.
That's right. And it's a more polite way to suggest something too, right? Like softer than saying, you need to add some plants.
Exactly. It's just a nice way to be polite and respectful when you're making suggestions.
I'm making a note of that too. Should for suggestions. Okay, so we've covered some key vocabulary and some grammar points. Is there anything else that we should highlight from this dialogue?
Well, I think it's just worth pointing out, like, how naturally that conversation flows. They greet each other casually, they jump right into the topic, and they're using simple language that's easy to understand.
Right. It doesn't feel forced or awkward at all. It's just two friends chatting about their living room. And that's what makes it so valuable for English learners, right? It shows you how real people actually talk in everyday situations.
Yeah, totally. It's not about memorizing long lists of vocabulary words or, like, complicated grammar rules. It's about learning how to use simple language effectively to communicate your ideas.
So true. And sometimes the simplest phrases are like the most powerful. Like, in this dialogue, they use phrases like, I think that sounds good. And what do you think? And these are all simple phrases, but they're essential for just, starting and maintaining a conversation.
For sure, they're like the building blocks of any good conversation.
And they're so easy to remember. Even if you're, a beginner English learner, you can start using these phrases right away.
Exactly. And the more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
Right. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first, it feels a little shaky, but with practice, it just becomes second nature.
I love that analogy. And it's so true for language learning too, right? The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
So, to all our listeners out there who are learning English, keep practicing, keep using these simple phrases, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn and grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, the goal isn't to sound perfect, it's to communicate effectively.
So well said.
Mhm.
Okay, we talked about vocabulary, grammar, and conversational flow. Anything else we want to touch on before we wrap up this deep dive? It's funny, we're talking about decorating a living room, but this conversation could really be about anything, right?
Yeah, that's what's so cool about language. You learn a few basic phrases, and then you can apply them to all kinds of different situations.
Exactly. Like imagine you're planning a trip with a friend. You could use these same phrases to talk about, where you want to go, what you want to do, when you want to go.
Oh, totally. Or you could be like, talk about cooking a meal together, or choosing a movie to watch, or even planning a party. The possibilities are kind of endless.
That's such an empowering thought, for English learners. You don't need to learn a whole new set of phrases for every single situation. You can just build on what you already know and apply it in new contexts.
Exactly. And that's how you really start to, own the language and make it your own.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Ew, I like challenges. What is it?
So, in the dialogue, Alex and Ella were focused on adding a rug and plants to their living room. But what other ways could they have, like personalize that space? What colors or textures or decorations would you add to make it feel like your home?
That's a great question. I think I would add like some artwork, maybe some colorful throw pillows. Oh, and definitely a comfy armchair for reading. What about you?
Oh, I love the idea of an armchair. I'd probably add some bookshelves too. I can't imagine a living room without books.
Me neither. And maybe a cozy fireplace for those, chilly winter nights.
Perfect. See, we're already using the language we learned today to express our own ideas and preferences, and that's what it's all about.
Totally. So to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep having fun with English.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe and like our show. We've got tons more tips and tricks to help you master everyday English conversations. Until next time, happy learning.
Thanks for joining the conversation here at Kaz English. We hope you found it fun and informative. Don't forget to check out kazapp.uk. That's kazapp.uk for more tips, resources, and interactive practice. Keep exploring, keep chatting, and we'll catch up with you again soon.